I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Happy Friday, everybody. Heading into the weekend, and you only have to work 4 days next week. So think about it. You think about it this way. After today, 5 of the next 9 days, you're off. I think that's a way to look at it, isn't it? And you know what? With the weekend coming up and with the 4th of July weekend coming up. Hey, Tim, how are you? Great to have you with us.
All right. Sorry, Steve. Had some technical issues here. Not the first time, by the way.
Gee, I've done this stuff for 45 years. Never once happened. No, I'm just kidding. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. Hey, I was just up in Williamsport to do 3 games. And in being up there, it reminded me that it's going to be the Mets and the Mariners, which means Cal Raleigh is going to be one of the participants. Yeah, it's Alonso, it's Lindor, it's Soto, it's Rodriguez. I got it. I felt in the playoffs a couple of years ago, Raleigh broke out. What has allowed him to become the player he has become in Seattle? And who really has been behind it besides his own personal effort?
Well, he's really, really strong. But more important, he comes from a baseball background. His dad was a coach, so his baseball IQ is off the charts. He understands what the art of catching is all about. He's a tremendous receiver. He has a great throwing arm. And the pitchers love to throw to him. I mean, he would be a very effective player if he didn't hit at all. And yet, he's got more home runs at the All-Star break than any pitcher, any catcher in the history of baseball. Johnny Bench had 28 in 1970. Yep. And Ken Griffey Jr. is the only Mariner who ever had more home runs at the All-Star break than Cal Raleigh does. So it's just a combination of a baseball IQ, son of a coach, and a switch-hitting catcher with power from both sides of the plate that have really made him arrive at this point in baseball.
The switch-hitting part, was that influenced by the father?
Yes. I mean, a lot of dads want to talk their kids into doing that. You know, it happened a lot longer ago when Mickey Mantle broke in 51. People started, all the dads said, hey, we want you to be like Mickey Mantle. Well, we don't have as many switch hitters. When you find a switch hitter who's equally good from both sides, hits from power, with power from both sides, and as a catcher, that is a rare commodity. I mean, I think it's less than 10 switch-hitting catchers in baseball history have ever hit 30 homers in a season. This guy is on a pace to hit 50 homers, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up there.
All right, I need to ask you about the Colorado Rockies situation. They are, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I've always had the impression they're an extremely loyal organization. With their front office personnel and so forth. What are the issues where Colorado is this bad, even though over the last 10 games they do have a better record than the Mets?
Well, the Rockies have a lot of issues. They just haven't drafted very well. They haven't developed very well. And I know it's an easy excuse, but it's really hard to play in that ballpark because at that altitude, it's just really hard to say go on the road and then come back and pitch in a place, let's say, where your breaking ball just doesn't break like it should. But all of that together, this is just not a good situation for baseball, that one team is this bad. We talked about this last year with the White Sox. That wasn't good for baseball either when one team is this bad. So I get no joy out of watching how the Rockies have struggled so badly, like the entire season. They're on a record pace for fewest wins, and they've used their money to sign some players. They just haven't used it very well. It's not that they won't spend money. They just haven't spent it very wisely, and they've had a bunch of injuries also. Chris Bryant gave him a lot of money, and he's been injured pretty much his entire time there. So long way to go for the Rockies, and it's sad because the Rockies fans are great. Denver is great. That ballpark is great, but the team is really not good at all.
Bobby Witt Jr. has been the latest to say he's going to play in the World Baseball Classic. How much of a boost has it been that so many guys with some star quality are saying they're going to play in it?
Yeah, it's great for the United States. The last time we played, people started to get the idea that this was a really cool thing to do. And when you watch these other countries, notably the Dominican and Japan, how much this means to win the WBC, now I think the United States is all in on this. And when the Mike Trouts of the world said, I'm playing, that really, really helped things. And now that Aaron Judge and Bobby Witt are in and Paul Skeens is in, I mean, they're going to get the best players this time. I just hope the parent team allows their players to be used properly. Now, we don't want anybody getting hurt in the WBC, but at the same time, you can't handcuff the manager and say, okay, this guy can only throw X number of pitches or work this many times. But that's going to happen. I just hope we go in with the same ferocity that Japan does and other countries do, and then the United States will be right there with everyone.
Tim, that's exactly right. It's how you use them. If you're allowed to just go out and just play the game with no restrictions, okay, now I think it becomes fun. If you start playing the game and you're handcuffing people, that's an issue. The Dodgers, okay, there are two teams that are 51 and 31. One's expected, that's the Dodgers. The other one's a team that was in the playoffs last year, Detroit. What has made Detroit, in your opinion, a really good all-around baseball team?
Well, their manager, A.J. Hinch, is as good a strategist as there is in the game today. And I got a load of that when I did get that series on TV last year, the Astros and the Tigers. I got a really good look at the Tigers in that. The way that A.J. Hinch uses his lineup, the way he mixes and matches, the way he platoons, he's got the whole game covered before the game even starts. The way he works his bullpen is unlike a bunch of other teams. It's so hard to match up with the Tigers because you're never quite sure what they're going to do, and that unpredictability makes it really difficult on the other manager. But what has changed this year is last year it was Tarek Skubal, Cy Young winner, best pitcher in the league. And as they called it, Skubal and total chaos after that in their starting rotation, where they weren't even sure who was going to pitch. They'd start a reliever, and then they closed with the same reliever 2 days later. But now they have other quality starting pitchers in their rotation, led by Casey Mize, who was the number one overall pick a few years ago, and Jack Flaherty and several others. So right now the Tigers, this is not a mirage. This team is really good, and they were really good, have been one of the best teams in baseball since the middle of August last year.
Okay, the Tampa Bay situation, we've talked about that before. As usual, Tampa Bay, to their credit, is having a very good year. They're having a very good year. So where does it stand on ownership with them? Where does it stand in the ballpark?
Well, these are unanswered questions, but from what I've gathered, and again, nothing definitive has come out, it looks like the Rays are going to actually sell the team. Now, that could change, of course, and it looks like they're going to have their ballpark fixed, or at least they're going to try to get their ballpark fixed for opening day next year. That's the first goal, is to get that, so they don't have to play in a minor league ballpark. But still, the ownership situation is still up in the air. But most indications are this time the sale is going to go through, and then that starts a whole other question, like what are they going to do with the ballpark? What about the lease? All that stuff. But bottom line is, I think things are trending in the right direction for the Rays to sell the team and do something to improve their ballpark situation.
All right, so that's where they are right now with that. It sounds like they broke ground in Las Vegas, right?
Yes, and that's great news. The A's should have never left Oakland or been allowed to leave Oakland. I still find that to be very unfortunate and very sad. But once they did leave, and now that it's official, they deserve a better situation than playing in Sacramento, which has been great for them, by the way. I mean, a really nice job in Sacramento. But you need a major league ballpark, and now they're on their way to building a state-of-the-art ballpark in Las Vegas. So let's just hope, for everyone's sake, that the construction and everything goes well, because the A's are, they're not a very good team right now, but they're an up-and-coming organization. And if they can get some financial help here and get a ballpark where they can fill all the time, that's really going to help things.
I think if they had been allowed to go to San Jose a few years ago, I think we wouldn't even be talking about this right now. But the Giants blocked it, which is their prerogative. But that's past history right there. Team you want to keep your eye on in the second half of the season because they're starting to build something, who would that be?
Boy, there are a lot of teams like that. But I'm going to keep my eye on the Cubs. They just got Shota Imanaga back. He's their best pitcher and was fifth in the Cy Young voting last year. And even in a really stout National League where there are so many good teams, Mets, Phillies, Giants, Padres, Dodgers, of course, Brewers, the Cubs have a chance to be very dangerous moving forward because they can really hit. They can really score runs. But they had a recent stretch here where they had a lot of pitching issues. They gave up 7 or more runs in 6 straight games. Well, now Imanaga's back. They've got 2 shutouts in a row, and things are starting to move in the right direction for the Cubs. So they're going to win the division in my mind. Mm-hmm. The question is, how good are they going to be when October comes? I think with that offense, they have a chance to be a really viable team in October.
Do you know what Craig Breslau's doing with the Red Sox, especially after the Devers trade?
Yeah, it's a struggle right now for the Red Sox, and I'm frankly surprised by how poorly they have played lately. They've lost 5 games in a row.
Yep.
They're 2 games under 500. They're 7 games out of first place. They've lost 9 extra inning games already this year, which is stunning. I love what they did bringing up all their young kids. Christian Campbell was very impressive early, but they sent him back for more work. Marcelo Meyer has a chance to be a really good player, but he's hitting 208. Yeah. Roman Anthony, who's guaranteed, I believe, to be a great player someday, is hitting 114. So I understand why they traded Devers. He simply didn't want to be there anymore, but it's a very, very risky trade because he's a really good player. He's a great hitter. He's built a Hall of Fame path already, and they're really going to miss him the rest of the year. But I understand when you ask a guy to move a position and he balks and he just doesn't want to be there, sometimes the best thing to do is to move him along. But you better do it properly, and the Red Sox did not handle this particularly well, and they are going to learn from that, I am sure. Well,
Tim, thanks so much. Thanks for doing everything you can to be on with us today. Technical problems are such a pain in the neck, and they're so stressful, and we appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, Steve. Thank you.
You bet. Great Tim Kurkjian as we got off to a great start on the show today. Brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
School's out, the grill's fired up, and your summer adventures are just getting started. Whether it's a beach trip, a ball game, or just running the kids to practice, Sunbury Motors Ford has the vehicle to get you there. Choose from over 20 Bronco Sports, roomy, rugged, and ready, with savings up to $8,278 and prices starting at just $29,483. Want efficiency and space? Grab one of 24 fuel-sipping 2025 Ford Escapes, discounted up to $5,769 and starting at only $28,352. Need a muscle from the boat or camper? Check out 35 Ford F-150s, America's bestseller, with savings just under $11,000, starting at $46,579. No pressure, no gimmicks, just real deals for real families in Central PA. Sunbury Motors Ford, coming alive in 2025. In the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.